Temple City Council for Thursday, the 19th of May. If you please rise, Reverend Hubert Austin will lead us in the invocation. Reverend Austin is the Associate Pastor with First United Methodist Church. Reverend Austin, welcome, sir.
And I thank God for every blessing. Let us pray. We thank God for the opportunity and privilege to join in that time. I pray for the city council, giving wisdom and courage to do the right thing. Help us to support them. We are grateful and thankful for the students and programs. They are so important and helpful. God bless the man and woman and little girl. This is our prayer. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Austin. Next, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by, it says, Kennedy Powell Elementary students. Here we go. Our Kennedy Powell City Council. Is the mayor here? There's the mayor. Go ahead. Good. Stay right there. Okay. This is a very special group of young people who I've had the privilege of getting to meet on a couple different occasions, and the mayor and I were together just this last week at Kennedy Powell when we presented our recognition for Project Redirectory. And so they have a program at their school where they have a city, and they have a city council, and they have jobs within their city. And it's a very, very interesting lesson that they have at Kennedy Powell about how our city government works. And they have their own city government at Kennedy Powell. So this is the city council, and this young lady here is the mayor of the city council in Kennedy Powell. And I got to be there when they had the swearing in, and we handed the gavel to you earlier this year, didn't we? And now your year is almost up. So congratulations, and let's give a round of applause for Thank you for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Next items on our agenda are proclamations and special recognitions, and by the number of people that we have in attendance this evening, it's a reflection on the number of recognitions that we have. So we'll start off with Mr. Jonathan Graham recognizing Rotary Club Exchange team from France.
Mayor, thank you. Members of the council. Each year, Rotary clubs around the United States send teams from the United States to other countries, and those countries send teams to the United States. They're called group study exchanges, and those teams are usually made up of one Rotarian from the club and then 5 other people who are non-Rotarians. And they go to the other country, and they spend a month in that country, and they spend that time visiting with people who do the same work or profession that they have in their own country, and they share ideas, and they get fellowship and learn about culture and history. And this year, our local clubs have had a group exchange from France, from Brittany, France, and my wife and I have actually had the pleasure of hosting two of the members of the team at different times, but we've really enjoyed that, and I will tell you that they are some of the nicest people you will ever meet. And I think Judy Judy could not be here. Judy Dewar set this up, and we're appreciative of her. Set up the whole week there. So they're basically in Temple for 1 week, and they finish that week on Friday. We're going to be sad to see them go. I think she asked me to do the introduction because she knows I speak very fluent French. I'd love to go through all the names, but, they have a video that they did before they came over that tells about themselves, and I think it introduces themselves better than I could possibly do. So we've kind of queued that video up, and then afterwards, the leader of the team, maybe we could ask him to come up and make a few remarks as well.
Est-ce que désormais tu me détestes d'avoir vu un jour quitter Brest, la réponse qu'il en reste devant mon avenir. Je sais bien qu'on y était presque, on avait fini notre jeunesse, qu'on aurait dû en dénouvrer les restes, la manque de milieu et la veste.
Pleases the council, we might ask Pierre to come up to the microphone and introduce Amandine, Dauphine, Willa, David, and Stefan. Thank you.
Stefan, Marie-Laure, Well, towards for presenting the presentation of my team, of Stefan, Phil, Mario, David, Emily, and Mika. So I'm so proud to be with you with the Rotary in Texas. We come from France, like it has been said. In Brittany, it's a region far west of France, and it's been a long life in your beautiful country. We are really enjoyed to be here, to spend this night, and we think we will be back soon. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. And I have a little something for each of you, so that when you do come back, you will come back as citizens. And David? Mary Love? What's your name? Very well. We're glad to have you in Texas. Thank you for being with me. I'm a Rotarian of 30 years, and we exchange banners throughout the world in our clubs. As we go from one club to the other, we will bring banners from our clubs and present them to the clubs that we visit. And so this is a beautiful banner from their home club, so their home district. So thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Our next recognition is a recognition of tourism stars. And I'll call on Ken Sikora, Director of Parks and Leisure Services for the City of Temple, and Nancy Glover to come forward and make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, and Nancy's assistant. Mayor, would you like to come forward and tell us about that? Each year during May, during Tourism Week, we like to recognize what we call for, I think, the past couple of years, tourism stars. And a tourism star is someone or a business who has gone above and beyond to help us increase to bring visitors to Temple. And tonight there are a few such folks we'd like to recognize. I guess I'll start with saying over this past year, I think Nancy's been really busy with her Convention Visitors Bureau, or CVB, to try and bid to bring several conventions to the city. And these bids generally include more than just the paper proposal, which is kind of the easy part. They include site visits by the organizations that we're bidding to bring here, presentations to that organization's board, presentations to their general membership, and trade shows, exhibits that we have to attend. And throughout this process, which is somewhat lengthy, several hotels have helped by providing direct monetary support, complimentary rooms, or just plain old-fashioned manpower to Nancy and her staff to make those bids occur and then help us to land some. And we'd like to recognize some of those hotels tonight. And the first one I'd like to recognize, actually it's not here, could not make it, but we will get their award to them, and that's the Candlewood Suites, and Doreen Burrow, who is the Director of Sales there. Candlewood Suites, as most of you know, opened for business this past year, and immediately became a great partner with the Temple CVB. Almost immediately, Doreen agreed to help with the LULAC bid, which was a large conference state convention we were bringing to bid to Temple, by donating $500 to the CVB sponsorship of the convention. She also agreed to help with the CVB's
photo booth at the corresponding hospitality suite, and she provided invaluable support during the whole event process, and we will get her award out to her. The next supporter who is here is Kenny Kelly, Director of Sales from the Fairfield Inn. Kenny, come up. The Fairfield Inn also contributed $500 towards the LULAC sponsorship, but they've also been an important supporter throughout a lot of our bids with the CVB. Kenny has been willing to help in any way possible to accommodate site tours, visits, complimentary rooms whenever asked. Although Kenny now works for the Residence Inn by Marriott, he's agreed to accept his role on Fairfield Inn. He has a long relationship with the property. And Kenny did a lot of the work this past year to help Nancy, and we really appreciate that. And next we'd like to recognize the Hilton Garden Inn, and Marilyn James, Director of Sales, is here, and I think A.L. Kaiser, yep, if you'll come up, both. I'll just say, and this isn't new with Nancy, but they've been a big supporter for us past years with us, and not only tourism, but with the department, and that's appreciated. But the Hilton Garden Inn goes above and beyond their support with the CVB projects. The property contributes to sponsorships, including $1,000 to support the LULAC bid. Bid fees, trade shows, presentations, you name it. When Nancy needs somebody to go for help, they do it. Marilyn even agreed to dress up as one of Charlie's angels to help us. She works with fingers to the bone in hospitality suites, our photo booth, trade show booths, during site visits, any other time we ask for help. We appreciate her willing, helpful spirit. We also appreciate the rest of the Temple Hilton family, as well as the corporate arm of the hotel, for their continued support of our programs and efforts. Thank you, guys. Next, I'd like to talk to James Kirkham, Director of Sales at the Residence Inn by Marriott. The Residence Inn by Marriott is a tireless supporter of the CVB and its projects. James has brought many years of experience at Temple and is willing to share his thoughts and ideas. And I'll just deviate to say that when James first came here, he did approach Nancy and me, and has had a lot of experience in trying to bring business to the city, and he jumped right in and offered to help us, and that's greatly appreciated. His support and their support of site visits, complimentary rooms, sponsorships, and trade shows has been instrumental in our success. One of the groups to Marriott helped us with all the rooms was the Texas Education Extension Association on their site visit, and the Marriott provided all the rooms for the group and hosted a breakfast for them. Thank you. We continue to work on new projects, and I think I'd be remiss, and I think all our award winners would also say this, that a lot of effort for that goes to Nancy. We call her a Convention and Visitors Bureau, but she is a one-woman staff, make no doubt about that. But it's truly appreciative of the support we get from these four properties, and they're very deserving to be additional tourism stars. Thank you, guys.
Ken and Nancy, thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to recognize these fine people in our community who give so much and help us be a better place. So thanks to all of you. Next item on the agenda is moral recognition. Item C is National Public Works Week. A few moments ago, Reverend Austin, in his prayer and his blessing, recognized that many people in this community started, by thanking the guys in solid waste, the trash guys, and for the work they do. Well, they're just part of the Public Works Department, and so we want to recognize the work they do, but the work that so many others do, and I'm not going to take away any of Nicole's thunder here as we recognize her and the great staff that work up in front of and behind the scenes every single day to help keep this city running the way it does. So, Nicole, if you'll come forward, and any of your folks that are here, and we've got a bunch of them, if you'll come forward and let us recognize you and the work that you do in this proclamation. Let me present this proclamation, then I'm going to let Nicole say a few words and introduce each one of you, or let you introduce yourselves, because I recognize I have a lot of years of experience, both professional and in and for the city of Temple, here before us today, and do a tremendous job. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. Whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as solid waste, traffic signal, drainage, streets, fleet services, engineering, public works administration, water treatment plant, water distribution, sewer collection, and the Dozier wastewater treatment plant. Whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. Whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. Whereas the efficiency of qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas this year's theme is Public Works, serving you and your community, as we celebrate the hard work and dedication of the many public works professionals throughout the world. And now, therefore, I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st of 2011 as Public Works Week in the City of Temple. And I encourage all citizens to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, and comfort, and quality of life. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple on this, the 19th day of May of 2011. Let me present this to our Director of Public Works, Nicole Taralva, and say to you, thank you on behalf of the council and your entire citizens for the work you do.
Take a minute to recognize some of our key folks here, and we have 170 plus people in public works, so a lot of effort across a lot of different divisions. We've got Lisa Seebeck here. She's a superintendent of solid waste and recycling services, and we service 23,000 solid waste customers daily. We've got Thomas Brown, the superintendent of utility services. He maintains over 600 miles of water distribution mains and 400 miles of wastewater collection pipes. We have Kenny Henderson, who's our superintendent of street and drainage services. We have over 1,000 miles of paved lane miles that he maintains, as well as 120 miles of drainage network. He also keeps the 62 traffic signals in the city operational. We've got and Johnny maintains and operates 2 water treatment facilities. Booster pump stations. We've got Chris Parker. He's contract operator. He's with OMI CHM Hill, managing our Dozier Farm wastewater treatment plant. We've got Sam Weed, who's our fleet superintendent. He and his staff keep up with 650 city asset and vehicles. We've got Aaron Gonzalez. He's our Public Works mapping manager, and he kind of keeps all of this in line with providing maps that we all rely on daily. And then beyond there, we've got Kurt Skopak. He's the second in command for fleet services. We've got Scott Edwards. He helps out the chief operator at the water plant. Carolyn Bennett, she's a face of public works to a lot of people, and she's in our administrative offices. And then Michael Newman is our city engineer assistant director. And on the end there is Sylvester Taplin. He's in our solid waste division. Salvador Rodriguez is our assistant city engineer. Christopher Peel is our GIS specialist. Jeremy Schroeder in our street department. And Daryl Briscoe in our utility services division. So a lot of folks, assets, and we very much appreciate the recognition tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks to each and every one of you for the work that you do for us every single day.
Yes, sir. Can I say just a couple of quick words, too? You and I had the opportunity to go out to Service Center this morning, and this may be what Nicole was about to talk about also, so
I forgot to mention that.
I'll stop then.
Here
you go.
Plus,
Nicole.
Thank you. We left a couple of books for the council folks to look at, some basics on public works. Here in a short time, we'll be talking about water conservation. Our service center is located out on East Avenue H. We're in open house today. Certainly welcome anybody who'd like to come out and see our facilities and learn a little bit more about what we do as Public Works Department.
I was just going to mention again the open house that Public Works is having out at the Service Center, and you and I did stop by out there, and I think we stopped by at the same time. Was it 5th graders, 6th graders? Lamar Middle School. 6th graders, I think, was it? 6th graders. And in front of your desk, or in front of your spots in the work session, I don't know if you remember seeing it, but there was a sheet, green sheet, looked like this. And we're going to play Are You Smarter Than a 6th Grader here in just a little bit. I hope you were listening to Nicole's comments there about how many miles, how many lines, how many things. No, I won't do that. I will not. But they were learning their Public Works department out there, and they were generally having a good time about it. And I do want to say thanks to Nicole and all of the folks out at Public Works for the displays they put up. They were really interactive type displays that really engaged the young people that came out. And I think there was more of them that came out later in the day or later in the morning. But it was a very good display, and I appreciate the time and effort and energy that Public Works put into reaching out and trying to educate more folks about what they do and how they do it. So thank you, Nicole, and thank all of the staff.
We're going to catch on to a theme here, if you haven't already picked up on it, that the City of Temple is very much a people business. We provide the services we do, and it's people who provide those services. And so we're going to recognize some more of those individuals tonight. And the next one is actually a partnership and a team effort between Scott and White EMS personnel and City of Temple personnel. So, Steve, if you'll have your folks come down, and our Chief Bell, if you'll bring our folks down from Temple Fire and Rescue, and let us recognize EMS personnel for Emergency Medical Services Week. I think from Scott White to Steve, is it just, you got Jessica Harris, Brian Sutherland, Mark Wolf, Steve Hubbard, Chuck Pearson, and Mark Barnes. Get everybody named?
Jessica's actually out.
Jessica's not here?
She's out signalized.
So you got a call, okay. All right, and on city side, we got Chief Bell in place of, I don't see Scotty Holscher. We're not even close. No. Craig Mata, Jonathan Buckley, Bill Dean, Eddie Mitchell, Cole Eason, and Jason Clark. Not even close. All right, well, so much for the list. Sorry. All right. I have a proclamation here, and there's two of them, and they read the same, so I'm only going to read one. From the Office of the Mayor of the City of Temple. Whereas emergency medical services and fire and rescue is a vital public service. Whereas the members of Scott and White's emergency medical services teams and the City of Temple's fire and rescue are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. Whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, fire and rescue, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of Scott and White's emergency medical services teams and the City of Temple's fire and rescue providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st of 2011 as Emergency Medical Services Week in the City of Temple, Texas. With the theme, EMS, anytime, anywhere, we'll be there. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. In testimony whereof, I put my hand in the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this the 19th day of May of 2011. Steve, thank you for you and your team for your opportunity for Chief Bell, you're welcome, sir. Thanks for being here. How about if I let you introduce the guys that I misintroduced or we did right?
You got all the folks you just misrun in there. I do want to recognize two people in the audience, and I'll probably lose my job as a consequence afterwards. Dr. Keith Stone, he's the chairman of Scott and White EMS and the head of the emergency room, and Dr. McGraw, who is near and dear to both Temple Fire and ourselves. She's the medical director for both of our services. And on behalf of the almost 200 full and part-time employees of Temple Fire, Scott and White EMS, I want to thank you for this.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Steve. Chief? We're good. All right. Somebody's going to have to help him up. Our final recognition is recognition of more fine public servants. And those are the individuals that are here. The ones we're really recognizing are the ones that aren't here, that have given their lives in the line of service. And if we can get our officers, Deputy Chief Scharf, Lieutenant Rose, and Lieutenant Ash, if you all come forward with your officers. This proclamation is in recognition of Police Memorial Week. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Temple Police Department. Whereas some 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 16,000 injuries. Since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 19,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including the following four members of the Temple Police Department: Officers Robert E. Hawks, Walter A. Staley, James O'Brien, and David Camden. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. 317 new names of fallen heroes are being added this spring, including 153 officers killed in 2010, and 164 officers killed in previous years. And whereas we desire to honor the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have provided a vital public service throughout our nation. Now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim May 15th through 21st of 2011 as Police Memorial Week in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge all citizens in the community to join with the family, friends, and fellow law enforcement officers in honoring the memories of those dedicated officers who gave their lives for our protection. I further urge all citizens to extend their heartfelt appreciation to our law enforcement officers for the invaluable services that they perform. In testimony whereof I witness my hand in the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this the 19th day of May of 2011. Officers, thank you very much for your service. God bless you. Service today? Did you?
We had a memorial service over in Belton today, and it was really nice to have all the officers from the county come out. And it was over in Belton. Belton PD hosted it this year. Every year we do it. I'd like to introduce you guys standing up here. We have Lieutenant Ash, Lieutenant Rose, Corporal Youngs, Officer Demento, Officer Lewis, and Corporal Johnson over here. What I'd like to do is say thank you for the recognition to everybody and the support, and we will continue working hard for the community. Thank you, sir.
Next item on our agenda is an opportunity for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up to do so prior to the meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the council. First, we have Mr. Alan Einboden. Mr. Einboden, welcome.
Mayor and City Council members and City Manager and staff, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I'll be quick. I know that your time is precious, and I don't want to waste any of that time, but I felt compelled to come and speak to you today about something you'll take up later in the meeting. And I have a presentation I just want to share with you. I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, which will make my 3 minutes more powerful. But I want to talk to you a little bit about this Elastic Valley River property that is being proposed to be donated to the City of Temple and its citizens, and to share with you a little bit about the Temple Parks Foundation's perspective about this opportunity. First, I wanted to share with you briefly that the vision of the Temple Parks Foundation. So if we could advance one slide, that would be great. The vision of the Temple Parks Foundation is to make Temple the most livable, beautifully connected community in Texas. And as such, we have a mission, and our mission is for the Temple Parks Foundation is to increase awareness and of the quality and usability of our parks and green space by expanding resources, which means fundraising, made available through our city parks that enhance our community health and cohesiveness. And we have a unique role in that we're a not-for-profit, totally dedicated to the City of Temple with a volunteer board. We have no paid staff, and as such, we are basically engaged in philanthropic activities. In the next slide, it shows who our board members are. Some of them are with us tonight, and I would ask if you would indulge me if they might stand, just so that we could recognize them. Mary Colberg in the very back, Justice Bigby right in front of her, Heidi Couchman, Jennifer Graham, and Matthew Monroe. And I missed two of them. Oh, William as well. And then the other members that are on the presentation before you. I want to specifically talk to you about the bend of the river, and I want you to know that our commitment to this project is that, one, we believe that this is probably one of the most significant opportunities for the City of Temple in a very long time. And we believe that this property is a very special property to the city, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. But But we would propose to work with the city at your discretion to focus on creation of a master plan for the property and fundraising in support of the accepted plan. We believe that this is will be a unique park that would focus on connecting people with nature and the beauty of nature. It's a little bit different from other parks that we have in our community. We believe it might also be a place for special events. If you wanted to just take a quick picture, this is some aerial pictures that were taken of the property, and so I don't have a pointer, but I guess I could point to this. The property is basically this section right here. This is the Leon River and Highway 35, and that property will forever be the southern boundary of the city of Temple on the major thoroughfare through Temple. And visitors will remember Temple through the prison at the end of the river. And I can tell you, I've been here 11 years, and I've always thought that was a special property and always wanted to know more about it, and I've learned a lot more since that time. It's easily accessible off the freeway, but at the same time, once you get off the freeway into the property, it feels like you're in a different place. And the whole region could experience our vision of whatever we decide would be the future for this beautiful property. The next thing I would just say is that this is a gateway to Temple, and if you can go to the next slide real fast, you can see that our city limits are where that red line is, and that's where you cross the river, and what a great welcoming it is for the city of Temple, for those who pass through or who are visiting the community. And I'd just like to share with you some of the possibilities that we've thought of for this property. The first is the concept of a rose garden. And this is a particular rose garden I've actually visited somewhere, and I think that it creates a special place where people can go and have some tranquility and meditate, and also enjoy the beauty that is nature. And also, another idea is a nature trail, because this is adjacent to the Leon River, and then it would be a wonderful place to have a trail along the river and emphasize that Temple is a river city. We may not have thought about that before, but in fact it's true. A botanical garden. We believe that there will be a wonderful opportunity to highlight and showcase some of the beauty of nature in that area by enhancing it with some things that you would see in these pictures in front of you. We'd like to see special events there, such as a Butterfly Festival, or an Easter egg hunt, or festivals of music and art that might be able to be hosted within that property. So we also think special events can be hosted there in time. And we believe this vision would unfold over many years, but we believe once the community wraps its arms around this, they will definitely embrace it and feel the same way we do about it. So just final thoughts. One, I want you to know the Temple Parks Foundation Board looks forward to collaborating with the city and its citizens to develop Bend of the River. And as you saw, some of our members, I don't know how many of them might choose to speak to you this evening, but I hope that if they don't speak to you here, that they will speak to you afterwards. We believe this is one of those events that our children's children will remember and tell to their posterity. And we just want to thank the Tolosik family, and Ms. Tolosik specifically, who's here with us tonight, for your generosity and also for your vision for our community. That's all my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eichenberg. You just got it in just under 3 minutes. Good job. Next signed up to speak is Ms. Bernice Tolosik. Ms. Tolosik, did you want to speak?
Thank you very much. I'm Bernice Tolosik.
Can we bring the microphone down to you? Just sit here. Yes, ma'am, that's just fine. We're going to bring a microphone down to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Bernice Tolosik, and these are my daughters, Toby Bigelow and Therese Schneider, and our other associates. And I would like to say that we have been searching for an appropriate memorial for Reuben, my husband and their father. And it occurred to us that he loved Bend of the River very much. And he also loved Temple. And so bringing the two together would be the best. So So that is what it will be, a memorial to Reuben Talati. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. At the risk of commenting, we'll still miss Reuben too. Next item on the agenda is to receive a report. We'll receive this report as an update regarding the City of Temple's Water Conservation Plan. Mr. Alvin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are bringing to you this evening a brief report on the water conservation plan. We try to do this about May of every year in preparation for the summertime water usage, so I'm going to go through just a few slides here. Temple's Water Conservation Plan is a document which is required by the state, Texas, and you can see a few points there. The purpose is basically to conserve our water supply, protect facilities, and protect public health, safety, and welfare. The plan has 5 stages. For the plan, the city manager shall determine when the conditions warrant moving through those stages, and they are based upon some quantifiable numbers which we track regularly. We're currently in the process of mailing out these water conservation brochures. I got mine in the mail, I think it was last week. Hopefully, if you haven't received this already, everybody will be getting them very soon. The information is also provided on the city's website. As of June 1st, we will automatically be moving into Stage 1 of the plan. Stage 1 is a voluntary component of the plan, and you can go to the next slide, Shannon. And Stage 1 promotes awareness and education. Also, encourages the next slide. There is a schedule that's lined out in the brochure that's mailed out suggesting voluntary water use limited to 2 days per week, depending upon your address. Next slide. Sundays and Thursdays for customers ending in an even number, and Saturdays and Wednesdays for customers ending in an odd number. The watering times are from 8 p.m. To midnight, and midnight to, I believe it's 10 a.m. in the morning. Stage 2, should we go to Stage 2, is a mandatory water conservation stage. In addition to those limited times of watering, which are non-mandatory, there are some additional requirements, including motor vehicle washing, refilling pools, Stage 3 is all requirements of Stage 2. Again, it's mandatory, plus a few additional restrictions. Stage 4, same, and again, this just steps up. Stage 4 is actually critical. Emergency stage. So really we're talking about all the restrictions, prohibition of irrigation, and potentially water rationing. So essentially our conservation message is to practice water conservation where appropriate and discontinue non-essential water use so that we can protect our available water supply. A few conservation tips. Do all of your washing when your loads are full. Use your dishwashers sparingly and garbage collection system, and utilize some composting strategies. Adjust your sprinkler heads, make sure all of your components are in working order, put covers over pools, and plant in the fall. And we also included a few links to some websites that folks and utility customers can reference for additional tips. So with that concludes my water conservation briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Trauber. Council, any questions? Mr. Trauber on the presentation? Mr. Blackburn?
Just a couple of quick comments. Again, thanks, Nicole, for the presentation. I just want to assure everyone that our water supply and our water distribution system are all functioning very well right now. I mean, our water supply is very good. We, as council knows and others may know, we depend upon Lake Belton for our water supply, and again, lake levels are still holding very well despite our drought conditions, but we're doing very well in both those areas. But as Nicole indicated, we do try to get a message out early in the summer for folks to begin thinking about water conservation, and hopefully do more than that, practice water conservation. Part of the reason we go through those stages right now, and we hope we don't get to any of those other stages, but we do go to stage one, voluntary basis, initiate that early in the dry season or hot season. We have some control over some factors that lead us into those other stages. There are some factors we don't have any control over that might impact going to a later stage, but some factors like conserving water and some of those measures that Nicole mentioned, we do have some control over. So again, I would urge folks to be good stewards of the water in the coming days. Hopefully that will help us avoid going to any of those higher stages later in the summer. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nicole. Next item on the agenda is an election-related issue. Each year, following the city elections, we will hold an election for Mayor Pro Tem. By the charter, that's the name given to the position that's effectively the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem will stand in situations where the mayor's not able to be present. And as hard as I try to be in several places at once from time to time, I can't always make it. And so many times Mayor Pro Tem will get to do that. And so this evening, council members, and for our new council members, Judy Morales and Perry Cloud, this is a point where we elect a member of the council to serve in that position. So do I have a motion for selection of a Mayor Pro Tem for the coming year?
Mayor, I'd like to nominate, or make a motion to nominate Councilmember Russell Schneider for the position of Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second on that motion. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Bowman?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. If that hesitation was because you thought you'd have to abstain and you could get out of it. It doesn't affect your compensation, I assure you. Thank you for your willingness to serve in that position. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section of consent are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a council member and will be considered separately. So this is item 6A through, looks like about Q tonight, and there are several items we already know we want to remove from the agenda for wording purposes or for presentation. Item 6F will be removed, item 6K, and item 6L, and item 6P. Are there any other items, council, that you wish to have removed from consent for consideration? There being none, I'll entertain a motion on items 6A through Q with the exception of F, K, L, and P.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as indicated. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Bowman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 6F is consider adopting a resolution authorizing an agreement with GovDeals, Inc. of Montgomery, Alabama, to provide online auction services to the city for a fee of 12.5% of the winning bid values. Let's see, I don't think we need a presentation unless, council, is there a question on that item? I know we're removing it for voting purposes, but any need?
I just had a comment. I know we locally have local auctioneer on this item that auctions off our used equipment and used goods, and I'd hate to see it go out of state for what little in the big picture that we sell, and I'm not sure what the local auctioneer charges us percentage-wise. I should ask, I guess, in the work session, but...
Ms. Mack, you want to come forward? There she is.
I believe that rate is 10%. It varies depending on the type of items. Seized items from the police department are a different rate. But I would need to verify that for sure, but I believe it's 10%.
I want to talk just in general what the bid process was and what we were looking at, and what are some of the reasons for justifying
I certainly
to
can.
expand that search.
Historically, the city has used a live auction whereby we take items twice a year to an auction site. The way public entities have gone away from that a little bit and more to the online auction approach. It's beneficial from the standpoint of just being able to reach more bidders and not having to worry about the elements of the weather and so forth associated with the live auction that's outdoors. So that was a little bit of the rationale going behind it. The other thing is that we find that very beneficial with going to an online auction is instead of having to wait and basically stockpile items for an auction twice a year, if we get a group of items or even a single item that we want to go ahead and get auctioned off, we'll be able to do that readily. It will not require just doing it twice a year.
In the write-up that was provided to us, it seems to be a trend from 07 through 07, 08, and 09 of declining or relatively close to a decline in the amount of proceeds that we received, while the number of auction items increased until 2010, in which point about half the items that we auctioned off were done online. And in 2010, the proceeds from the auctions went up considerably. Can we attribute that to the online at all?
That we needed to dispose of in 2010. The other reason for the increase is when you do a live auction, I believe it's a tendency of the auctioneer to kind of box things up, and you sell things kind of as a group, whereas online, you're taking a photo and you're actually buying more unit items than lots of items.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
How long would this agreement be for?
What we are proposing is a one-year agreement. Our plan is to evaluate and come back to the council in a year so we can see the results of it, comparing it to prior years when we used the live auction approach.
And then the materials that we're going to auction, we have to store those until they're sold?
We do, yes. This limits the amount of time that we have to store them.
Right.
We actually have a very large quantity of vehicles that Sam Weed was showing me today that we're ready to sell as soon as we get an agreement in place.
Other questions? Now I'll entertain a motion on item 6F for the resolution authorizing agreement with GovDeals, Inc.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the authorization, or the resolution authorizing the agreement with GovDeals, Inc. of Montgomery, Alabama to provide online auction services to the city of Tampa. Is there further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
No.
Councilmember Morales?
Abstain.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. And to item 6K, consider adopting a resolution authorizing a one-year lease agreement with Texas Forest Service for lease of space in Public Service Building. I think this actually goes along with consider adopting a resolution authorizing amendment to the lease agreement with Bell County Health Center for lease space in Public Services Building. These two are related, so I'll go ahead and take these together. We've pulled them merely for the purposes of voting, and so if there's no objection, we'll just entertain a motion for approval of items 6K and L. Motion. We have a motion to approve. Second. And a second. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Abstain. Mayor Jones?
Aye. And item 6P is consider adopting a resolution approving the second quarter financial results for fiscal year 2011. Ms. Bernard, would you give us a little presentation on our mid-year report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Pleased to present the second quarter financial statements for the period ending March 31st, 2011. The city's FY begins on October 1, ends on September 30th. And the information I'll present through 3/31 represent half of the year, 50% of the year complete. Total revenue of a $53 million budget, or 65%. Next slide, just a detail of the general fund, our composition of the general fund revenues. The revenue budget, again, is at $53 million. Sales tax, or 6 revenue sources make up 87% of the revenue, and the major source of revenue for the general fund is sales tax at 28% and ad valorem taxes at 21%. One revenue focus, again, sales tax, as of moving 1 month forward through April 30th of 2011, sales tax exceeds our current budget by 8.51%, or $748,000. There's 5 months remaining in the FY to report. This is a chart that showed the red line as our actual sales tax for the current FY. The beige represents our budget, with the exception of 1 month. And I also report the previous FY by month, with the exception of 1 month. Our actual sales tax receipts have exceeded budget, and only 1 month was below previous year, our prior year. Another chart that shows sales tax trends from month to month. We're reporting as far back as October of 2007. One note, in the period of June 09 through December 09, we started a downward trend in our sales tax, monthly sales tax allocation. In the past 8 months, that trend is reversed, and we're starting to see monthly increases. This is a chart for the FY to other cities within our region. It also compares Temple to all cities statewide. And it shows the percent increase year-to-date. So note, City of Temple is the red bar, and we're slightly below, our increase is slightly below statewide cities, but it exceeds City of Walton, Waco, Coppers Cove, Salado, Harker Heights, and City of Clinton. Georgetown is to the far left. Their sales tax is reporting at close to 13% increase. Another focus area is our ad valorem taxes. Our taxes are levied on October 1. We have discounts for payment in October, November, December of 3%, 2%, and 1%. They become delinquent on February 1, and year-to-date collections as a percent of levy are at 96.27%. General fund expenditures, and again, this is accrual basis. Total general fund expenditures are at $26.55 million, or 48% of budget. One focus area within the expenditures I'd like to point out is our fuel costs. Next slide.
I've reviewed the criteria in our policy and the applications, and I do find that they meet those requirements, and I do recommend that you approve these ordinances on first reading. Both of these are for existing businesses, and that's one of the things I know that in our policy we contemplate is not just granting tax abatement or considering it for new businesses, but trying to retain primary employment and create new taxable value within the city for existing companies. I think these are two that Lee has worked on, so I do recommend your approval. These do require public hearings as well.
Mr. Grant. Council questions? Mr. Bell, Mr. Blackburn, anything? There being none, these items require a public hearing. Let me declare the public hearing open on the first item for the ordinance designated tract of land at 3601 Eberhart Road, City of Temple Tax Abatement Reinvestment Zone number 21. I'll declare the public hearing open. Please come forward, state your name and address for the records prior to making your comments if you wish to speak. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this item. Motion to approve. Second. Motion and second for approval of the first reading on the ordinance to adopt the tax abatement agreement for that piece of property. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Bowman? Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jennings?
Aye. And the next item is the first reading of the public hearing, so I'll declare the public hearing open on the item for the 3000 Pegasus Drive. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the next item.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second for approval of the first reading on this ordinance. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider? Aye. Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jennings?
Aye. Item 9 and 10 are similar, and I'll read these together, and the discussion may relate to both of these, but then we'll take them individually. Item number 9 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a Chapter 380 grant agreement with Robert Flores representing Brother Empire LLC for redevelopment improvements at 201 South Main Street in the South First Street Strategic Investment Zone corridor, an amount not to exceed $30,000. Then item 10 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a Chapter 380 agreement with Temple Pro Ventures Commercial LP for redevelopment improvements at 1401 South First Street in the South First Street Strategic Investment Zone corridor in an amount not to exceed $30,000. Ms. Phelps?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you, as you mentioned, you have two applications for grants. The first one is by Brother Empire LLC, which is represented by Robert Flores. The subject property that we're looking at is a downtown property that's located at the corner of South Main and Avenue B, and it is part of the First Street Strategic Investment Corridor. The building is depicted there. The one on the top is the northern view, and then the corner view on the bottom right. The improvements that are proposed are to add architectural details and moldings, to install new signs, to repair and replace sidewalks, also to repair and replace exterior stucco on the building, and also to do some interior renovations. The proposed use for this is a bar and grill. The grant request is for $30,000, which is a matching grant, and that is the maximum that they're eligible for. $15,000 cap for the facade, $10,000 for sidewalks, $2,500 for signs, and $2,500 for demolitions. The total investment of the project is anticipated to be $87,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that one.
Questions on that particular proposal? Would you do the next one as well? And we can vote on them separately. I think the discussion will be relate to both of these.
Okay, the second grant application is for 1401 South First Street by Temple Pro Ventures Commercial, which is owned by Derek Martin. This property is located in our First Street incentive corridor and is part of a CIS program. And it is located directly north and adjacent to the VA hospital. There are a number of existing buildings on the site. The picture on the top right-hand corner is an existing building that will remain as part of this initial Phase 1, and I'll talk about the Phase 2 in a moment. The bottom picture is an assembly of metal buildings, and those buildings are existing right now and are contemplated to be taken out. The Phase 1 improvements, which is the site with the metal buildings, includes removing those buildings, constructing a 24,000 square foot new building. That building is proposed to meet all of the TMED standards, and it will be primarily brick and stone of construction. It also includes installation of all the landscaping, streetscape, and sidewalks that are in compliance with the TMED standards. And the capital investment for this project is $1.1 million. They are anticipating a second phase, which will include the existing building. That building would remain in place, but would be renovated. However, it would also meet the TMED code as far as landscaping and streetscape. The existing parking, which you'll see is at the bottom of where my arrow is, that parking would be removed in order to accommodate the landscape and the streetscape, and would be relocated to other parts of the site. And this will also help for them to meet other basic city codes as far as backing motions into the right-of-way. The grant request is to relocate 400 feet of a 10-inch sewer line. The estimated cost of that line replacement is $30,000, and we have identified a source of funding for this project. You have to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, questions and discussion relating to Chapter 3 of the agreements as proposed for Robert Flores and for the Temple Pro Ventures?
In our annual budget, I guess we've done for 4 years, we've had, for these grants that are given out, we've had $85,000 in the budget each year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I think a total of $350,000. And right now, that fund is depleted.
Yes, it was depleted with our last project. We do have, I believe it's $2,000 left in the fund, but that's all that's remaining at this time.
And so the $60,000 will come from where?
The project will be funded by, I want to make sure I have this correct, the general fund balance designated for capital projects unallocated. Correct.
I have we've talked about this in workshop as far as is the program working, and I believe as far as aesthetically it's working, and I think it's a good program, and I think there are going to be a lot of folks come up to take advantage of these grants, and I think it's a good program. But given that, in a time of a budget crunch where we're moving things around and squeezing things around, cutting budgets for all divisions and trying to make everything work. And then in a presentation in the workshop, it was mentioned that our streets are in poor condition. Our maintenance program is less than adequate. Our utilities, we have lots of utilities that need to be repaired, old utilities. This unallocated fund balance is typically used for that in capital improvements and capital purchase. As Rosa mentioned in the workshop, we're going to have to replace 9 solid waste trucks in the near future, which is close to $1.7 million. To take this out of that fund, when we set up a budget for these grants, and once that money is gone, it's gone, and now we have additional projects to fund elsewhere. I think I support the project. I think they're a great project, both of them. I think I could support the project if we could consider taking that money out of next year's budget of the $85,000 that I'm assuming that we'll be putting in the budget for next year. So doing the math, that would leave about $25,000 initially in next year's budget. Is that right? No. Yes. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, 25,000, 27,000 with the 2,000. And then have an opportunity to get some additional information on the program, how it's working, and some additional feedback. And if we then choose to increase that grant fund, that we do that at a later date and not commit to coming off of unallocated funds at this time.
Any other comments?
If I may, I was not on the council when the council originally approved the $85,000 a year for the strategic investment zone corridors. However, I was on the original strategic investment zone committee. I guess I'm looking at it a little differently in that, to me, I'm happy that it's taken, that finally this program, I think, has taken off. And I view this as not only a tool for urban renewal and beautification of an area. To me, it's also an economic development tool, much like what we just voted on in the tax abatement. I don't look at it strictly as how much property tax are we going to derive from each one of these cases, but it's how many people are going to be working on each property. How many people, how much will they get paid that will then be turned around and spent in the city of Temple? I look at it from several different areas, and I would hope that we would fund. I would hope that we would fund these because, in my opinion, they're good projects. Now, in the future, that doesn't mean that every strategic investment zone project that we get would need to be passed. However, I hope we get to a point where there is competition, because I like to see the local business people and property owners go out and try to make a difference in these areas that may need a little help.
I think it's also important because it is economic development and it's also revitalizing and giving incentives for businesses to expand. And for that reason, I think it is a good project, but I think what Richard is saying also is that we do need to be careful in the future of, different types of funding that we would accept, and hopefully there will be more businesses that would like to compete on this. But I think at this point it would be good to, with T-Man and with all that's going on, it would be good to encourage the businesses to go ahead and go forward since they're ready.
Other comments?
I also suggest, Mayor, if we really don't need to set a budget amount for that, possibly if we are going to prove each one of these line by line and take it out of the unfunded or unallocated fund balance. So what we've done is we've set up, we want to spend this, and now we want to spend more. So I don't know that most. Anyway, I think it's a great project. I'm not, talking negatively about the project. I think it's very successful, and I do think that unallocated fund balance has lots of items that need to be funded by that thing at this time and in the near future, and that again, our streets are. We have to somewhere find the money to take care of what we've got today. And if we're spending it on these types of things that we hadn't planned to spend it on, I don't know that at this time is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think that personally on these, and these two together tonight are two very good examples of worthwhile projects, but at the same time, they, as presented, they each get $30,000 that they're eligible for. But yet one is an $87,000 investment, and the other's almost a $1.2 million investment. And they, by virtue of the formula, qualify for the same amount. And while I hate to set a precedence or state an amount that might be precedent-setting, which is not my intent, it seems inequitable to have one get basically a third of their project paid for and the other one get 2.5% of their project supported through this program. So I think in the future, as we look at the program, we should look at some type of maximum based on the dollar expenditure of a program, that makes them a little bit more equitable based on the investment, because some may, you just never get any type of return if you even try to attempt a return on investment based on property tax revenues in future increase in value, which is really, I think, one small part of the program. There are many other quantitative as well as qualitative reasons to do these programs. So, just to address briefly the unallocated reserve, as was in Ms. Bernard's presentation, we've got $2.7 million in unallocated reserves as of May the 19th, and the projected unallocated reserve of $3 million or close to it coming at the end of this year should the trend that we've already seen in the first 6 months continue. And not to take it all away from Russell Schneider's point about the needs coming up in next year's budget, which aren't going to be funded by tax increases, and there are not a lot of places to cut a lot out of the budget. And so unallocated reserves is obviously going to get tapped, whether it be for vehicles, whether it be for many other items that we talked about in our budget workshop today, which are pressures going forward. But I think this program is a good program that it's not denied by anyone here. But I think the sooner you get started with some of these projects, the sooner we're going to see the benefits, and we're starting to make a good investment. I agree with Councilmember Dunn's comment that it's starting to take hold, and it's starting to be the kind of program that we want it to be. I don't know where $85,000 came from when it was first allocated, but we haven't changed it, but yet we've increased the number of strategic investment zones from 1 to 3, and yet we didn't increase the amount of funding. So at some point in time, if it took hold, we're going to run out of money. So you make the presumption that we would allocate $85,000 again next year, and so this would take $60,000 out of that, leave us $25,000, and if the program's picking up, we're either going to start to backlog projects that people aren't going to be able to, they might not do without some assistance, but the other side of that is we may need to consider putting more into that fund in future years if it's as successful as it is, and as we evaluate it, that there's a return on that. So all that's to say, there's a lot before us to consider as we continue this program, but I think all of us recognize that it's a good program and we're reaping benefits from it already. So that conclude my comments on this item for this evening. And Council, your pleasure on item 9, or if there's no further comment or discussion, desire.
I would like to make a motion on number 9 that we approve the $30,000 and that it is funded by whatever we put in the budget, comes out of the budget that we put in the next budget for the strategic investment zone, that the funding comes from that item.
And you're saying in the 2012 budget? Yes, sir. All right, we have a motion to approve the $30,000, and that those monies come out of the 2012 budget, so that would be next year's budget, and that won't be approved until September 1st and won't go into effect until October 1st of 2011.
Well, I just have a question. I'm looking to Tracy and to Jonathan both. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you obligate next year's budget yet.
Well, you can fund it now with the unallocated, can't you? And then replace it.
Let me take one shot, and Tracy can talk from the financial side. A contract that lacks current appropriations, you can authorize a contract, but we would not execute a contract to legally bind ourselves until we have funding available. So we would have to wait until you appropriated in the 2012 funds to actually legally commit ourselves that way.
Ms. Bernard?
With that comment, then I understand how we would fund it.
which we wouldn't enter into the contract. But yeah, we would authorize a contract, but we wouldn't enter into it until the budget's approved.
Could you not fund it with allocated today? And then short that budget by the same amount that you were intending to put in there?
Well, that's a different question. I mean, that's where the council that approves the budget will come to.
Exactly, I think that's
So
right.
what do you want the budget to be next year? Because it'll be
$60,000 less.
Look toward Jonathan to see if he agrees, but is that when council votes to approve the FY12 budget, you can look at whatever the funding recommendations are from the preliminary budget and then make deductions off of that if it doesn't meet the level of funding for this particular item that you're talking about tonight. But again, I'm not sure from a contractual standpoint, it will be that we authorize the contract tonight if you would.
We cannot legally obligate ourselves if we don't have appropriate funds, so we wouldn't execute a contract at this time.
Do you want to modify your motion?
No, sir. So that would mean that it wouldn't get funded till the budget got approved.
And the contract won't get entered into until the budget's approved. So we're authorizing to enter into a contract when the budget's approved. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion? That motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any other motion on this item?
Motion to approve. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you taking them both?
No, I will take individually.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Item number 9.
Okay. We have a motion to approve item 9 for the $30,000 investment, the 380 agreement for $30,000. And we have a second from Ms. Morales. Is there further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
No.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 10 is $30,000 for the Temple Pro Ventures Commercial LP 380 agreement.
I'll try that again.
We had a motion for approval.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Cloud. So further discussion. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
No.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 11 is consider adopting a resolution appointing members of the following city boards and commissions. We have 3 appointments, one for Animal Service Advisory Board, 1 member to fill an unexpired term through September 1st of 2012, a position on the Transit Advisory Committee for 1 member to fill an unexpired term through September 1st of 2011, and a position on the Temple Public Safety Advisory Board, 1 member to fill an unexpired term through September 1st of 2012. We do not have anyone at the present time who's expressed an interest in the Public Safety Advisory Board that we have on file, so we have the Animal Service Advisory Board and Transit Advisory Committee. Council, are there any nominations for those?
Nominate Jennifer Rojas for the Animal Services Advisory Board.
Okay. We have a motion for Jennifer Rojas for that item. Is there a recommendation for the Transit Advisory Committee? We had Mary Ann Rojas. Okay. So we have a recommendation for Jennifer Rojas for Animal Service Advisory Board and Mary Ann Rojas for the Transit Advisory Committee. Are there other recommendations? If not, I entertain a motion for approval on those 2 items, if it's your pleasure, Council.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales. Aye. Mayor Jones.
Item 12 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a letter of intent to acquire the Bend of the River property located at 7915 South General Bruce Drive. Mr. Graham.
Mayor and members of the council, I know we discussed this item at a workshop. I think it'd be helpful to go ahead and briefly view the presentation portion of it that you gave at the workshop. We also had, you heard public comments by members of the Parks Foundation and members of the Telosic family. Bend of the River property is a 30-acre tract along the Leon River. As you heard, it's on the east side of I-35, near or just north of the bridge that is the city, south of the city limits. It's a beautiful, attractive piece of property with lots of countries on it, one large family home and multiple barns and storage areas, and it serves as a gateway into the city. Property is owned by the Telosic family. It was owned by Reuben and Bernice Telosic. Reuben's passed away. The family wishes to donate that property to the city. Among the uses that you heard discussed by the Parks Foundation, and I think that Ken has considered if you accept the donation, would be to use the property as a park or botanical gardens. I think that meets the family's expectation. There's a couple photographs, just go through those. The large house, property. There's some storage buildings, and it's just a very nice tree-covered lot. Staff does recommend that the City Council authorize a letter of intent to acquire the property. Anytime you acquire property, there are certain things you need to do in terms of just due diligence. We have begun that process. There are still some items to complete. We would ask that you consider allowing the execution of a letter of intent, and that letter of intent would be subject to us, to the city, completing its due diligence and accepting the property. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Council, questions on this item?
I think it'd be a great addition to our community, our city, especially as you enter. Just imagine how it could really work.
There's a beautiful piece of property.
Is there a motion on this item?
Okay, I move that we execute a letter of intent to acquire the Bend of the River property.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Got a motion, is there a second? Second. Second from Councilmember Cloud. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider.
Yeah, abstain.
Councilmember Morales. Aye. Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 15, consider adopting a resolution authorizing an assignment of a non-emergency ambulance transfer service franchise from Central Texas EMS LLC to Acadian Ambulance Service, Inc. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. In 2008, the City Council approved a 5-year non-emergency ambulance transfer service franchise for Central Texas EMS. That franchise will expire on November 7th, 2013. Central Texas EMS is currently in negotiations with a company called Acadian Ambulance Service, Inc. to acquire the assets of Central Texas EMS, including their franchise agreement with the city. Their acquisition of the assets is conditioned upon the city approving a transfer of that franchise from Central Texas EMS to Acadian Ambulance Service. And this Central Texas is requesting that you consent to their assignment. Under the terms of our franchise agreement, under the city charter, the transfer of a franchise does require the consent of the council, and it also requires a 4/5 vote of the city council. We have received the letter. We have in their package requesting your approval of the assignment. They have letters of good standing from the city of Austin, where they operate a non-emergency franchise. They had a letter of support and good standing from a national accreditation agency that accreditates ambulance itemized list of the services they provide in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi for a number of cities. We did our own checking. In Texas, for example, in the Houston and Beaumont area, they provide both emergency and non-emergency transfer service. In several of those cities, we talked to Port Arthur, Nederland, and Beaumont, and they are in good standing in all of those cities, and we received good comments back on those. We understand they are also active in the Bexar County area as well. Today, we received 8 letters of support from local companies that do business with Central Texas right now. They're primarily appear to be companies that provide assisted living, letters of support in favor of the franchise. So this it's a resolution, doesn't require a public hearing, but there is a representative here, Mr. Aaron Reese from Central Texas EMS, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Council, questions on this item? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to consider adopting the resolution authorizing the assignment of the non-emergency ambulance franchise. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn?
Abstain.
Mayor Pro Tem Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda for this evening's meeting. Thank you very much for your attention and your participation. We are adjourned.